Welcome to Lack of Focus, an X-Wing miniatures game podcast, brought to you by Dice 8 Productions. Hello everyone, welcome once again to another episode of Lack of Focus, Episode 9, The Return of Abrams. I am your host, Ed Horn, and alongside me tonight, one Mr. Sean Dorsey. Welcome back, my friend.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Happy to have you back. And our producer extraordinaire, one Mr. Kris Sheriff. Kris, how's it going, my friend?
Good, thanks, Ed.
Chad was unfortunately unable to join us tonight due to unforeseen circumstances, so we'll just be the three of us flying off tonight. So in tonight's episode, we're going to be discussing, well, we had that Coruscant Invitational thing kind of happen, and we're going to discuss some of the lists that came out of there and the fun that was happening there. And tonight's main topic is going to be the third part of our Pillars of X-Wing, and that is going to be turrets. We do, of course, want to thank our sponsor, which is Galaxy Gaming Gear. Check out their website for all of those cool fancy tokens and your lack of focus tokens and all the other fun stuff that they can be able to produce for you. So strap in and let's get ready to fly.
All wings report in.
Red 10 standing by.
Red 7 standing by.
Red 3 standing by. Red 6 standing by.
Red 9 standing by.
Red 2 standing by.
Red 11 standing by.
Red 5 standing by.
All right, we're back, and in the flight deck, we're going to go over and cover the events that we've been doing, the squads we've been flying, all that fun stuff. I know everyone else here has something more interesting than I do. I was struck with the plague over the last 2 weeks. Thanks, public school system. Really appreciate that. So each one of my children and myself all went through individual phases of getting some sort of bug that lasted about 48 hours. So every chance I had to attempt to play, somebody was sick or I was sick. So it just didn't happen. And I know, as being a host of an X-Wing podcast sort of thing, that's unacceptable. My goal is, of course, to correct that. Now, unfortunately, I'm flying to Atlanta next week, and I'm not taking X-Wing because I'm flying to Atlanta for work. So I'm not going to get any games in until potentially next weekend. And that's my flight deck. The only other thing that I have been doing, I did kick off, and this is completely lack of focus, off topic. I did kick off my Magic the Gathering Arena YouTube channel, Old Guy Gaming. So if you are into that game and you're interested, you can see me play Magic poorly, as Magic the Gathering Arena has opened up into the open beta, and I've been churning out some relatively, videos relatively every other day. I'm trying to do a Monday, Wednesday, Friday release schedule. Having tons of fun playing card games and flipping cards and opening packs. It's oodles of fun. So that is really what I have been doing, because that's one thing that I can do, that even if the kids are sick, I can still record down here in the basement. So that works for me. So everybody else has way more to talk about than I do. So Kris, I'll go ahead and kick it off to you. What have you been flying lately, my friend?
Well, I had a live stream at work where we played some X-Wing.
I may have caught that. I may have seen that game. You were flying that TIE Swarm you told me about.
Yeah, so I made 4 different lists because Greg still hadn't even unpacked his moving house, so he's not unpacked any of his X-Wing stuff. So it's like, we'll play X-Wing, but you need to sort it all out. So I made 4 different lists, and then I wanted to try the TIE Swarm out, and Greg picked the best list that I made, in my opinion. So Greg ran...
Without a doubt, that was a good one.
It's good. Greg ran Boba Fett, Slave 1 title, Fenro, and a Zealous Recruit. I was running the TIE Swarm that we spoke about in our jousting episode. Was it that one?
I believe that's the episode we talked about, yeah.
Yeah, it's basically Hell Runner with Swarm Tactics, Iden Verso with Swarm Tactics, Gideon Hask with Ruthless, the other Wampa and Academy, and the other named pilot who I can no longer remember.
Gideon, Matt. Was it Gideon?
Gideon and the other one. It's a 2. It's
Aiden.
It's all 430.1. I'm gonna have to look now. Okay, I'm not even going to edit this out, so I'll just keep talking. It was all 4. All of them shoot. So Wampa shoots at PS5. Hull passes PS initiative to Wampa to try and get that early shot in, and the Academy shoots at initiative 4, and it works. I thought it worked pretty well. I enjoyed it, but
debris means nothing to you, does it?
Well, I will link the game, so if you want to watch it, you can. But as I was deploying, in my head, because I've not played TIE Swarm in a long time, and in my head, I was thinking to myself, there's a reason why you don't put the Academy, like the Initiative 1 ships, on the outside flank. They always go on the inside flank. And I couldn't remember why, so I just put them there anyway. And then I remembered why you put them on the inside, not the outside, because then they can't move and barrel roll because they mess up the rest of the swarm. So I deployed wrong.
Didn't you also have Howlrunner in the front to start off with?
Oh, yeah. That one didn't actually bother me. Howlrunner being in the back is better, but
yeah, normally the deployment would be to have her in the back protected, so if she is getting shot, it's at range 3.
Also, because she moves last as well. It's the same reason. So it just been that long. And then because I'd messed that up, I decided to go straight in and show off what happens if you get if you joust a Boba Fett at range 1.
At range 1.
And the answer
and gave a textbook definition of why not to do that.
Yeah. I did more damage than I expected to, and still didn't win. Del Meeko was the other pilot.
That's the one. That's the one.
Hellrunner,
that's the one that does the rerolls for defense.
Only
it's the anti-Hellrunner.
Only if the attacker's damaged, which didn't happen. Spoiler, 200 to 0. The opening engagement, I stripped 3 shields from Boba Fett. I was like, that's one more shield than I expected to do. This is going well. Then everything died.
Yeah, because you came up with the brilliant strategy of blocking Boba Fett and showing exactly why not to do that.
I blocked him to deny him the offensive focus.
Correct.
So
come on, out with it.
I'm not going to say that blocking Boba Fett is always worthwhile, but given the list that I was running, I needed to pile the pressure onto him. So it was more to control his movement than to deny actions. It was always going to be within range of at least 2 TIE fighters anyway to get those rerolls. So it wasn't that bad. And you try and control. It's which TIE you can shoot at, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I hit rocks that I didn't expect to hit because I hadn't played for a while. And I gave a pretty good demonstration of why people don't think TIE swarms are good.
Well, and like in Ultron, you had as you're looking at the screen, you're in the lower right-hand corner. That's how you deployed.
Yeah.
And you had a debris field right over there. And the very first move you do after your opening move is roll right over the debris field.
Oh, yeah. So that was
and
intentional.
Then take a crit.
Yeah. I took a crit from a debris. I did want to get within range 1 of him in the opening engagement to show I didn't need to see what would happen. I knew what would happen, but I wanted to show it. So there is now documented evidence of why you need to control the range as much as you can and how difficult it is to control the range. So the next video I do will be playing against someone who's trying to actively avoid being at range 1 of Boba Fett. So anyway, we'll roll on to a second game I played. So I was going to play again that evening, but Jill had walked herself out of the house with the baby. So I had to actually, at the end of the stream, I was like, okay, we can't play again. I need to go home. So that ruined those plans. But it turns out our neighbour who she was in the house did have the spare key. As I told her that they did, but they didn't believe me. But hey-ho. So I was just denied a game of X-Wing. But I stayed after work on Tuesday and got another game in. And I actually ran the Boba Fett list because it was a league going on in Calgary. So I thought I'd actually try. So I played against Mark. He was running a loaded Boba Fett with like feedback array, static discharge vane, so you can do the feedback and not take the ion yourself and hand the ion off to a different ship. And then a loaded Guri with like advanced sensors and afterburners and Virago and hull upgrade. So pretty beefy.
So that was more of an extended list as opposed to the 2.0 list that you were running.
Yeah, all the lists I'm flying are just pure 2.0 at the moment. And I handed him Fenro because I forgot how feedback array worked in the new thing. So I was like, I'm just gonna either clear or I'll ram into him and it'll be all fine. But feedback array only works on ships you bump, not ships you bump. I got it the wrong way around in my head for some reason. And I could have disengaged Fen as well. So I traded Fenro for half health on Boba Fett and then still cleaned up and won.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So my list is Boba Fett, Slave 1 title, Fenro with no upgrades, Zealous Recruit with no upgrades, and a 3-point bid. The 3 points was enough in this game. It's not a beefy bid. I think you've got to get to 5 points for it to be considered a real bid. I'd say that's
a
99-point bid in old X-Wing.
Right.
But it was enough in this case to get me initiative. Guri was slippery, but she was never going to beat me. And if he engages on the Fang, Boba Fett gets to control the game. If he kept chasing Boba Fett as he did, the Fang just controls the area around Guri. It was denying me shots with a Fang consistently, but you just could use it to control areas of the table. And I think it's a really, really strong list. I would go out on a whim and say that's the strongest 2.0 list in existence at the moment.
That we've seen, yeah.
I would play that against anything I've currently seen in 2.0 and definitely think it's the strongest list.
Yeah, no, that's a good call.
That's my flight deck.
Sean, you participated in a tournament, an actual 2.0 tournament, my friend.
Yeah, I actually did. It's been a year and a half, I think, since I even really played. So I felt like I did okay for that much of an absence. I went 0-3, which I pretty much figured I would.
A little bit of rust out there still, yeah.
Yeah, I actually flew pretty well for the most part. But it came down to just making better decisions, trying to joust way too much where I didn't really need to as much. But because of the list I ran, which I'll tell you in a sec, the list kind of forced me into that, or at least the mentality of, it is what it is. I had 3 really good games, and the list that won the tournament was a swarm, and was a pretty good swarm. Yeah, and it beat a Fenrau Boba Fett for the win in the last game. So both the players that made the final, and they're really, really good players. It's a father and son team. Yeah, that swarm list is to me the best list in the game, but beatable.
What was it a tie swarm, or was it like a Z swarm? Or?
No, it was a tie. It was all 2.0. So it was. I don't remember everybody that was in it, but I remember Howlrunner. I think Gideon was in it, and Iden Versio was in it.
Was it 6 or 7?
Exactly the question I was going to ask.
It was 6. Yep. It was 2 academies, and then Gideon, Iden, Howlrunner, and I'm not sure who the last one was. But it was brutal. I mean, I can't remember what the total MOV was, but it was, they lost like 60 points total or 40 points total.
Holy cow.
Yeah, it was brutal. And, probably maybe not the list you take to a small tournament, right out of the gates, but everybody there was cool with it. And I thought it was really good. And if you want to win, you bring stuff to win, If you want to play, you bring stuff to play and have fun. And so my list for this was 2 Gold Squadron veterans. They're the same. Selfless. They both had Selfless, R5, and Ion Cannon Turret. Concept with that is to pull the crits away from my Red Squadron veterans, which had Elusive and R5 Astromech. So whole concept here is try to do as much damage control as you can in what's incoming, and I actually did. The Selfless Golds are really good. My first game, I was playing against Patrick McDonald, and he was playing I don't know which U-Wing, but he was playing a U-Wing, an X-Wing, and a Y-Wing, and that was truly what I called a paint, no paint game. And he rolled a lot of paint, and I rolled a lot of not paint, and when I did roll paint, he rolled paint to counter it. So it was pretty interesting first game, and that one I can't remember. He took like 2 ships off the board, and I just handed him the game because I think he still had full ships. I took 12 or 14 shots. I can't remember how many it was at an X-wing, and I did 1 damage. So rolling that many dice, I did 1 damage. I took 1 shield off of it, and by the time that was complete, I had I think I'd lost an X-wing and a gold. And in that game, he didn't roll many crits, so the golds were kind of worthless in that game for the most part. And, it is what it is. Game 2, I played against a 3 X-wing, 1 Y-wing, all pilot skill 2 list, but he had, which is going to be a bitch that I'm going to have for a while, is the concept of the ordnance now. He was playing the proton torpedoes, which have 2 charges, and you no longer have to spend the target lock to get them to be able to use them, which then you can spend the target lock on the reroll after the dice go. And I did pretty well against him. I was able to take, I think I got 1 or 2 of his ships off the board, but he ended up literally just proton torpedoing me off the board.
Wow. Admittedly, though, that was our big complaint with Ordnance in the early stage. Well, most of the stages of First Edition's lifespan, until they came around with some of the fixes, was that Ordnance, you would spend the target lock or spend the focus to be able to fire it and then not be able to modify the dice. So they've corrected that, but you think it might be a little overcorrection?
So my problem isn't with spending it. It's having either 2 charges, so being able to shoot 2 of them and not spend it, or be able to shoot 1 of them and be able to spend it. I think there has to be a happy medium in there.
So because I don't want to go too much behind the curtain, but I planned on including ordnance in the bombs and devices 4th pillar on our next show. So don't waste too much content.
No, because don't worry, I'll still be bitching about it next show. So, and then the third list I played was against a Wedge, Luke, and I'm not sure what the third one was.
It's gonna be the trench run list if it's the one that I'm thinking of.
Hawkins.
Yeah, but it wasn't. It wasn't. I think it was a lower pilot skill. I just don't remember exactly. But once again, I went up against torpedoes, and I was able to mitigate some damage. But he came at me the smartest way possible, because he went after, and no matter what the range was, he went after my Y-wing. So I was able to mitigate damage from Y-wing to Y-wing, but after a while, I just couldn't do anything. I couldn't do enough. I was able to get the pilot skill, I think it was a 2 ship or 3, whatever it was. I think it was a 2.
Probably Garvan.
Yeah, it might have been. So, no, it was an unnamed pilot.
Oh, okay.
I know that. But I got it off the board.
He had to make room for all the ordnance, so maybe he didn't have room for bigs then.
That's what I'm thinking. And in the end, that was one hell of a tactical game. It was, nip and tuck, me putting ships in the way of. Once I got his low pilot skill ship off the board, I think he had taken 1 Y-wing off. I got 1 of his, still had a Y-wing left, and it became this really cool tactical. It was just a tactical back and forth with me blocking K turns and him, getting. It was really good. It was a good game overall. But what happened is, we were just jousting. It was just it was like a defender joust, just with X and Ys. After he took the second Y off the table, I was able to block Luke and Wedge 2 turns in a row, but the third turn, he got Wedge around, and then that was because he had already had target locks established, even though he was stressed. And he ended up getting my 3rd X-Wing, and I think the 4th X-Wing I had like 1 hit point left to a pretty full Luke and a pretty heavily damaged Wedge. But in the end, 2-1, a high pilot skill to low pilot skill. And I think he ended up losing the X-Wing, still had 1 torpedo on it. So kind of an accomplishment there. But, it was a great time, great fun. Got to meet some new people, which was cool.
That's always good.
Playing playing a game that I love to play and playing it in the 2.0 world, which takes you back to the 1.0. Couldn't beat it.
Do you remember the force power that he put on Luke? I'm always kind of curious to see how people are addressing him.
Supernatural.
I don't remember.
Must be supernatural.
Yeah, I truthfully don't remember.
The only other one that kind of makes sense if you're going for an alpha list would be heightened perception, which is the attack during the engagement phase. You count your initiative for 7. So there's an interesting list that I was going to do for one of my Should I Fly It videos was going to be an alternate trench run. And it is just the alpha list where you have Wedge with Swarm Tactics and then Garvin. So the Wedge Swarm Tactics Garvin so that he can fire his torpedo first, or like he can shoot first. Then he spends his focus to pass the focus token to Wedge. So Wedge has got a target lock focus shot when he does his shot.
Oh, that's nice.
It's gimmicky, but it's fun. So who cares?
Sounds like fun. All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for the flight deck. We're going to go ahead and move on to the news right after this.
Almost there.
All right, we're back, and in the news, we're going to cover over a couple of articles that FFG put out in regards to the Resistance and the First Order. We got our first glimpses at some of the stuff that's coming in the Resistance pack. At least it's happy to know that C-3PO does have his red arm in the card.
And his red coordinate.
Trying to get... there's a couple other ones. The Han Solo crew card really kind of jumped out to me. Specifically, if you haven't seen it, after you perform an evade action, after you perform an evade action, and it is a red evade that it adds to the ship, just for point of reference, gain an additional evade. Gain additional evade tokens equal to the number of ships at range 0 to 1. So, in theory, you could get 4 or 5 evade tokens on something.
Fly against an 8 TIE swarm.
Oh yeah,
have 9 evade tokens.
They all get wiped out at the end, and it caused you stress, but still, nonetheless.
So the reason I jokingly say that it's a trap is what ships have crew for Resistance at the moment? We don't know for definite, but probably not the X-Wing. Probably not the A-Wing. The bomber we'd assume has gunner, but maybe a crew. So maybe the bomber, and then Rey's Falcon.
Correct.
Say Rey's Falcon just to trigger ahead prematurely. So, how many evade dice does a Falcon roll?
Uno.
How do new evades work?
They only change
the dice you roll.
Correct. So it's not as good as it sounds.
It's not as good as it sounds. It's a trap.
All right, fair argument. I saw that and thought that great, and you're right. Maybe when we get later on down the line, you get ships that have more evade dice and a crew slot that would pull in, but at the least,
having like people who add blanks, so you can still modify the blank. That kind of stuff. I can't remember if Fen only works offensively or defensively as well now.
It's interesting that you said that. I said when you defend or perform a primary attack, so you would need to have him as a gunner slot as well. So that would then be able to do that.
Yeah. So there are ways of forcing it to work, but you get a bit rabbit hole-y, the old rhymer rabbit hole.
Mm-hmm. Since we're on Fen, I do want to take note that they did something that I have been waiting for them to do for years, which is put a clarification in the rule on the damn card before an FAQ happens. So Finn's ability reads, when you defend or perform a primary attack, if the enemy ship is in your primary firing arc, you may add 1 blank result to your roll. And then, in parentheses, this die can be re-rolled or otherwise modified. No FAQ, no errata. It absolutely can. It's plain as day, written on the card. I love that they added that.
Yeah, until you get a rules lawyer that comes up with something. But no, I think that's their way. It's their smartest way of doing it now, is try to put as much on the cards. That's why you went to the landscape card, and you go to this wider, or a wider text box, so that you can put that in there. And now you don't need to, modify it down the road. You just know that Finn will always be able to do this. No questions asked.
Ray's ability, I think, still feels like her old ability. Just look at this. When you defend or perform an attack, if your enemy ship is in your primary firing arc, you may spend 1 force token to change one of your blank results to an evade or a hit.
That's better because it used to be reroll.
Correct. But she also has 2 force tokens. So I thought that was interesting.
So, okay, I'm not gonna go into the math behind it because we're not that show anymore. But trust me when I tell you these things, they are based upon that. Force charges, you're recharging 1 a turn. You have 2 available. You're only rolling 1 defense die. So being able to spend 1 to guarantee yourself an evade is effectively the same as having old 3PO. But you can, if you need to, if you're getting shot twice, do it multiple times. So this is good defensively. It's okay offensively, but I probably wouldn't waste it on a shot.
Right, and then when you add Finn as the gunner, presumably on the ship.
So my mindset at the minute is being as trimmed down in 2.0 as possible, trying to get more ships. One of the things, so I can't remember I've said already, I know I said offer, but I just literally uploaded a video looking at these 2 articles on Dice 8 already. And one of the things I talk about is that Resistance feels like it's a rebel faction, but with the big trap open of, you can spend more points on this ship.
Well, and the ship isn't as good as a Rebel Falcon.
It's the older, broken down version.
Yeah, I mean, at least they, older, broken down. As I recall, it was doing more for her than it was for Han in any movie when you get down to it.
Ever.
It's because but the 8
because
and the
of
3,
a force.
Yeah, I get why you take 2 shields off of it because you're given something to it. But at the same time, this is what I hated in 1.0 when they made the ORS.
Yep, I was curious if you were going to say that.
It's the same thing. Now we have 3 different types of Falcons. We have good, decent, and meh. And the meh.
So I would only say this will be meh if it's
not
costed
this, not
too
this
high.
One, not this.
No,
one.
he's talking. I'm talking
Landos. I'm talking Landos.
Oh, coordinate being built into your Falcon, man. Come on.
Yeah, I get it, and I know how to. I know how people will use that. That's cool and all, but still, it all still comes down to what's the difference between this one, that one, and any other one. Now, I could say the Lando one. I could see that one being the lesser one because it had all the special modifications.
Exactly.
But this one being different when it was a better close-in fighter or close-in ship than any time Han ever used it. Han had his special maneuvers were 3: turn left, turn right, and spin.
Well, then it makes you wonder if
he only knows a few maneuvers. He doesn't know a lot. He knows a few maneuvers.
And he showed all 3 of those maneuvers that he knew. Well, with her, she flew it without even knowing how to fly it. 1,000 times better. So this is, I know this is semantics and this is, playing that, but it still irks me that they've done this just because.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. What I was going to say, real quick, just so everyone's clear, even though we're not that show anymore, it's 3 attack with the bow tie turret, 1 evade, 8 hull, 3 shields, not 5. With obviously with Rey having her 2 charges, it does have a focus, target lock, a red boost, and a red reload or a red turret move.
Right.
Yeah. Red.
They did fix the ORS, and then they broke this. So that's just my rant.
Maybe they're just saying it's older and broken down.
Well, yeah, this is at the time that the ship is around. It's a really old chassis now. The thing I like about it is, I'm not disagreeing with Sean, but the reason I'm not as bothered is because the 3 different ships are in 3 different factions. Never shall they cross over. You can use whichever model you've got in whichever faction you want, because it is still a Falcon model. So if you want to use your Lando's Falcon as a Resistance Falcon with all the cards and stuff, that's fine. But the stat line is tied to a faction now, and the factions don't mix. So it's not like the old ORS being different to the same ship in the same faction. So that doesn't bother me as much.
No, I don't have a problem with it. It's just I just have the gripe about it's the same damn ship. It was ORS was the same damn ship,
But if you take into account, like what Kris is saying, though, if it's a different faction, like those shields coming off are probably being compensated for with other crew and other modifications that would make up for it.
Fully understand. I'm with you 1,000% on that.
I would not be surprised to see Rey gain force charges and be cheaper than her equivalent in 1.0.
Right, I would agree with that.
Because of the stat line change.
I would agree with that.
No. I'm fully with that. I don't have like I said, this isn't a gripe about the ship itself, or it's just my complaint
about the.
It's my compulsive complaint that I've always had is that when you have one ship, you shouldn't have different stats. But just me.
The thing I wanted to do on Lando's Falcon is just to clarify for any of our listeners who are thinking about Lando's Falcon as if it were a Falcon, you're doing it wrong. If you think about it as if it were a Lambda shuttle, and then it suddenly gets awesome.
Yeah.
I agree. I agree. Yeah, that's a good
Can
way
we get to my
it.
bitch now? Because
no,
I think mine's far more significant. The title that comes with it is Rey's Millennium Falcon. At what point in time did this get willed to Rey? What happened to Chewie? He piloted the thing for 30 years. Well, how is it not his?
I can tell you the exact moment it became Rey Falcon. It was October 3rd, 2018, when this article came out, and FFG said, this Falcon, it's Rey's, right?
Yeah, not Chewie's. Chewie has no ownership over it whatsoever. Didn't make all the repairs, modification. Nope, it's hers.
If that walking carpet wanted a Falcon, it should have been in the Falcon saying dibs, rather than outside eating pork.
Yeah, that's where he lost it right there. But the title, what it does, if you have 2 or fewer stress tokens, you can execute a red Sagnor's loop maneuver and perform a boost and the rotate action even while you're stressed. So did that just say all 3? Pull the
you can do them whilst you're stressed. You can't do them all.
Oh, okay. Because
now this is where you're going to get into the rules lawyering.
Thank you.
Right here, because it doesn't delineate that they're separate. It delineates the word "and" is the worst word to use in the English language when it comes to this, because you're going to get that guy who's going to want to run. Oh, hey, I'm going to do the Millennium Falcon title. I'm going to run the red Sagnor's loop maneuver, the Sagnor's loop maneuver. Oh, and I want to perform a boost, and I want to perform
the rotate.
Even though you wouldn't be see, because if you do it with
hold on,
Chris, hold on a second.
Yeah, no,
and you can't even get him on the stress rule because stress still comes after the chain. You would do all 3 of those maneuvers, and then you would gain the 3 red tokens.
See, I'm glad somebody else sees this because I recognize the intent of the rule.
Understand
that's
the intent.
not how it is written.
Okay, so how does English and rule sets work? That's fine. Just let me go now. This is my turn.
His turn to counter rant.
Okay, no, it's isn't a rant. This is just a general the way you should read cards. This is a public service for every TO ever. Okay, the way the rules are written are that these are the rules unless a card states otherwise. Does everyone agree with that statement? It's in the rule book that these are the rules unless it's superseded by a card. That would entail that cards supersede rules.
Right.
So the rules are that you can't do a Sagnor's loop because it's red on the dial. So if you're stressed, you can't do it. Agreed?
Agreed.
You can't do actions when you're stressed. Agreed?
Agreed.
Everyone good? Yep. So this is saying that you can do this maneuver while stressed, or you can do these actions while stressed.
But it's not saying that way. This is the problem. You read it word for word.
I'll repeat it. It says, if you have 2 or fewer stress tokens, you can execute red Sagnor's loops maneuvers and perform boosts and rotate actions even while stressed. What there should be.
So
And
you can
should
perform.
be comma in between. A comma
Thank you.
or a colon in between.
So what you have to remember is that the icons are actually words. So it's perform a boost action and rotate actions, even while stressed.
I get what you're saying,
Yeah.
but that's not what it's saying. Unfortunately, this isn't what you're saying, or this isn't what it's saying. It says, to me, what if you were going to argue this, and this is, if you perform a Segner's loop and a boost and that, and I get where you're coming from, Kris. I know exactly how you're saying this.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this as a player, though. From a player's perspective, they're going to try to go the extra 5 miles on this one. And they're going to say, I met the first condition. I do not have 2 stress tokens. So that allows me.
You don't have 3. You can have 2.
Oh, sorry. Okay, I don't have 3 stress tokens. So I've met the first tier of this, which means now I can execute a Segner's loop and perform. That's what it says.
But it doesn't say and perform.
I get that. But it also doesn't say not. It doesn't say if you put a comma or a colon in these statements, you end this right away.
I think if they added the word either,
Right.
I think if you had 2 or fewer stress tokens, you can either execute a red Segner's loop or.
But you can't say either, because you can do, if you've got no stress, you can do a signal. As
Right.
Sean said, you'll only gain the stress
that's
from a
true.
signal.
That makes it even more
So they have to
complicated.
word it this way. Sean's point is specifically to do with the fact that he's saying you can boost and rotate the turret.
Right.
After doing the Segner's loop.
Okay, fair argument.
And both arguments
And my
are
bitch
correct.
wasn't even about the wording. My bitch was about the title itself. For the
Yeah.
record.
Yeah,
Long
yeah.
story short, it's contentious wording that is going to end up getting eroded.
And it's Ray's Millennium Falcon.
Yep, absolutely.
And it's Ray's Millennium Falcon. Correct. Not
two-
Chewie's Millennium Falcon.
Nope.
Ray.
Nope. Wookiee gets
Okay.
nothing.
The best card in the article. You ready?
Go for it.
R2HA.
Yep.
Oh, love it. Love this card.
Oh, yeah.
Now, do you love it for the same reason that I do? So I want to hear someone else's one first. Go ahead.
I just think this is the best, the card to get excited about from this reveal. Fair enough, it's resistance only, but you know how we were just saying like Boba Fett's good with rerolls, yeah?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Rerolling defense die is actually a really strong ability.
Yes.
Yes, it is.
Yes, absolutely. My take on it was a little different. I wanted to see someone paint an alternative art on this with a little bit of purple and a little bit of green and some ha 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 printed on it, and maybe a why so serious.
We're not doing Jared Leto Joker.
No. Do the Heath Ledger one. I'll be happy with that one. The other crew card in this one I actually really, really like. I do want to point out Paige Tico. Her the first ability is okay. After you perform a primary attack, you may drop 1 bomb and rotate your turret. I'm okay with that.
Or rotate.
Or rotate. Correct. It's the second one that I find more fascinating. After you are destroyed, you may drop a bomb.
Yeah.
How many times have you had a bomb on board that you didn't get to use, and all of a sudden, boom, I'm dead. Here, have a bomb on the way out. Little middle finger on the way down.
She's so good. So Crimson Specialist, I think it was the one that let you drop a bomb in contact with your base instead of, if that ship still exists, staple Page Taco to that. Because I guarantee that whoever killed you will be in range of one of your bombs if you can place it anywhere within your base.
Yep.
And if they aren't, it's because you didn't 3 forwards at them.
So
I'm
my
gonna die with a
question.
suicide my way in.
So I have to ask this question, and I'm probably way off base here, but that's a gunner slot, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Why isn't she? I mean, and this is once again semantics, but why isn't she just why is she a gunner and not? And I understand why, because I saw the movie and she's more like a bombardier than a gunner.
So the Bombardier card is in the gunner slot as well.
Yeah, I know,
That's why.
I get that. I get that, but I don't understand why they're just not crew cards.
Yeah, I thought the same initially when they did the Bombardier, but then the reasoning in my head is that it lets you control where that crew card can go better. So if you make her just a crew, and then all ships that have access to this type of bombs can just get her, they also get access to shit like C-3PO, Palpatine, all that kind of stuff.
Right. So you're limiting. It's a limiting factor. I get that.
Yeah. So for example, the TIE Striker has a gunner slot when it doesn't have a turret, so it's blatantly for bombardiers and bomb modification or primary arc modification.
Okay.
So, but
that makes sense.
You can't put Krennic on a Striker. So.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
So I do have a question because I don't fully understand. I'm guessing I'm hoping that my brain is just missing this, but Rose Tico or Tycho. While you defend or perform an attack, you may spend one of your results to acquire a lock on the enemy ship. So are we looking at does it have to be an evade result or
a focus result? Is a blanket result?
Is it paint? Are we looking at paint or are we looking at specific paint?
For optimized prototype, it actually clarifies which results you can spend, which implies, as does the article that this is taken from, that a blank result is still a result, so Rose can spend blanks as of this exact moment, according to the article. A blank is still a result. Whereas for optimized prototype, they specify that the result has to be a focus, hit, or a crit.
Yeah, see, that makes sense to me.
Okay. All right, I'm not going to go further with that one.
All right, so they also had the First Order counter article on that one as well. The first one, of course, that popped out to me in big shining colors was Mira Jade. I mean, Captain Phasma is is a crew card, basically stealing acquiring the same ability that the Mira Jade card originally had from first edition. We did have a conversation off camera about this particular card and sort of what Disney is doing with the EU characters and pilots that used to be in the game that are no longer part of second edition. This game, of course, crossed ownership as far as who owned LucasArts whenever the game was created. So certain EU characters and ships were fair game to be added to the game of X-Wing, and now they're not because it's not part of Disney's canon. So where the opportunities are available, they are replacing those with current characters in current game or the current canon. So Captain Phasma gets the benefit of that. There's other good cards that came out of this one. Which is the one that definitely jumped out to me? Hux was okay. The one that really jumped out to me, of course, we got to see the stats on
Hux. I would argue with just before we go,
go ahead.
Too deep. So Hux is while you perform a white coordinate action, you may treat it as red. If you do, you may coordinate up to 2 additional ships of the same type. Each ship you coordinate must perform the same action, treating it as red. So you're getting a lot of token manipulation or action manipulation, but you're stressing yourself and you're stressing all 3 ships, which is fine as long as Hux is on a lower initiative enough ship. But then you've got to look at the faction. So at the moment, the only thing you can put this on is likely to be the Upsilon, which is going to cost a crap load of points.
Mm-hmm. And we'll get to that in a second.
The Upsilon is a bit of a beast. Then Hux is going to cost points, and then it's got to be the same 3 of the same type of ship. So to get at least 3 of them to get maximum value, so you're looking at FO.
Same type of action, not ship.
No. Additional ships of the same type.
Oh, wow, I missed that. Oh, wow.
So I'm not arguing that Hux isn't good. He's a sleeper. No one will take Hux because no one's going to run an Upsilon FO swarm. Because I feel like the Upsilon's got to do too much work and carry too much for weight in that list. So competitively, I don't know that they're going to do that. But Hux has got the potential to be really good if they add a cheaper ship with only 1 crew slot that you can spam.
Yeah, that would make sense. That would make sense. And it has to have a halfway decent dial to blow up all that stress that you're passing along all over the place.
Yeah, and Hux has to coordinate it first.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. He has to be the first one to go. We did get stats on the Upsilon, of course, and we were talking about it. Our second that I'm aware of for attack dice ship from the primary arc, 1 evade, 6 shield, 6 hull, comes with a focus, target lock, reinforce, coordinate, and jam. All of the actions have all the
white actions as well.
All white, yes, absolutely.
So in Empire, you have like the shuttle and the Reaper are like switches of each other. One's got the white jam and the red coordinate. One's got the white coordinate and the red jam. This guy just gets all white.
Yeah.
And the white reinforce is going to be pretty good in front of 12 hit points. And it has the ship trait of linked battery.
I was just getting to that, yeah. Which is
while you perform a cannon attack, roll 1 additional dice.
So that's tractor beams, that's ion.
Yeah.
If you're a well enough inclined pilot, that's heavy laser cannon at 5.
In the bullseye arc.
In the bullseye arc, I mean, granted, it's difficult to pull off. I was actually surprised if you're really shooting for it, how it can be done. I mean, you're looking at a 5 attack die. I mean, the reason why heavy laser cannon's so low in points now is because it's only bullseye arc. But for 4 points on this, it might be worth it.
So the thing I really like about this is I think you get an excellent control platform, depending on the points level of the cheapest one. Being able to get, we've not come to him yet, but Snoke with the cheapest, riding the cheapest one of these with a tractor beam or I don't know, any ion cannon, tractor beam, or the jamming beam. I can't remember what it's called. It might just be a jamming beam. The one that gives you more jam. But you can jam them as an action to remove tokens and then make your control more reliable because you roll an extra dice and you've already made it more reliable because of jamming. So I think that this is a really strong control element. A lot of people have been like, oh, why am I going to fire a cannon when I've got 4 attack dice primary anyway? Control.
Exactly.
You can roll 5 attack dice just by moving as fast as you can towards them without paying any extra points. So whilst the link battery is decent on HLC, I would be looking at that link battery more as a control.
No, I agree. I think it fits one of those roles that they always wanted to work in X-Wing that never quite worked, which was the role of that support ship. I know the Hawks started trying to do some of that stuff. I know the shuttle start doing some of that stuff. And we started getting into the latter parts of first edition where they were trying to add additional ships that were just solely there for support ship value as opposed to their attack value. So when you're looking at this ship, while that 4 attack die is pretty scary, that's to get itself out of a jam. It's really there meant, and when you start looking at things like Hawks and you start looking at this and you start looking at, there's so many things that ship can add to your squad that the points value becomes not just attack dice. All right, you mentioned him. Let's talk about him. Supreme Leader Snoke actually coming in at 2 crew slots, similar to Palpatine. First Order only, does come with a Force token that recharges at just 1. During the system phase, you may choose any number of enemy ships beyond Rage 1. If you do, you may spend a Force token to flip each chosen ship's dial face up. Excuse me?
That's intelligent agent on steroids.
Excuse me?
So the good thing about this is that it's actually a little bit weird. Me and Sean can have another 20-minute conversation about the wording of this. So, for example, I only have 1 force charge. So say that there is no other card in play, I only have 1 force charge available. If I choose 2 dials, nothing happens.
Wait, what?
During the system phase, you may choose any number of enemy ships beyond range 1, so I pick 2. If you do spend that many force charges to flip each chosen ship's tile face up, I can.
Yeah, no argument there.
Oh, good argument.
So make sure you don't go stupid and pick more ships than you have force charges available.
Well, so then that question then begs the argument, because I know I've seen this in other places where Force tokens seem to be the only thing that kind of cross cards, if you will. So if you put this on, like we know Kylo is going to be a pilot on this, so he's probably going to come in at 1 or 2, probably 2.
I'd expect 2, which is why the wording. So in the article, it talks about if he's joined by his apprentice Kylo Ren, it shows a crew card. So there's assumptions that it might have 3 crew slots for this shuttle, which would make it an upgrade to the Lambda, which
absolutely.
But you can't take that as gospel because it's an FFG article. So
marketing department.
I would guess that it is accurate. You can take 3 crew on it, which gives you access to 1 if you just put him on a standard one, 2 if you take him and Kylo crew. I would expect 3 as Kylo pilot probably has 2 force charges.
Right, and unlike other upgrades, the Force token additions on crew slots are a +1, meaning that those get added to the bar, the stat bar on the ship itself, which is why they're able to stack.
Right, and this is going to be interesting to see what his cost is, to see if he's actually worth it. And that's a big thing for me with this card right now is I think it's pretty good. I think it's good to know what your opponent is doing ahead of time because any information. But if you have better force use or force points use and points use for that matter on any ship, is this the guy you really want to use? Even though having that information is big, you don't have the. It's kind of like you go back to intelligence agents on the Six Sigma that Aaron Bonner ran at Worlds in 14, where intelligence agent worked well because it allowed you to know where to decloak to and then be able to block. Where this, I don't think you're going to get the same out of it.
Well, that's what I was just about to come on to. If you consider the possibility to run that exact style of list, you take the cheapest Upsilon with just Snoke, no other upgrades, and then you park him in a corner with the full intent of playing him like the old Palp Lambda, just running, only you can now reinforce and make it a real pain to get half points from. Then the only other ship you take is Kylo Ren in his Punisher, in his Silencer. And we know nothing really about this, but assuming it's similar to the current one, he's going to have force, so you can give him supernatural reflexes.
Yep.
And then one of he's got sensor slots, so you can give him advanced sensors as well. So you get a pre-move boost and barrel roll when you know where they're going to be.
I agree.
And then I'll take a 50-point initiative bid after that because I don't need anything else.
Well,
God help them.
You better be a damn good player then if you're going to go that route.
Oh, yeah.
You know.
God help them if they ever introduce another crew card other than Kylo or Snoke that has a force slot, because in that scenario you could have
Knights of Ren.
right? Exactly. Like you could have a whole bunch of force tokens out there to be able to flip multiple dials, and just Kylo can just sit there and pick which one he wants to take off the board.
But like I said, the only threat to Kylo is someone who's going to be initiative higher than him, because he's initiative 5. I think it's spoiled in the spread for the Silencer that you can see Blackout and Kylo are both initiative 5.
Mm-hmm.
So if you've got a chunky bid, you only have to fear the initiative 6s. So Vader,
Suntir, a Wedge.
So Vader, I would argue that you probably don't need to fear Wedge.
Yeah.
Because, oh no, you move after me in your X-Wing. Oh, please don't close your S-files and boost for repositioning. Oh. Sorry, Wedge.
Grandpa will give him a run for his money, though.
Yeah. But if you know what Vader's dialed in and can supernatural... Vader's going to supernatural as well. But he doesn't have a boost on his...
That was going to be like the I'm going to smash some noobs kind of thing, and it seems like that's the one that everyone's running is the supernatural Vader.
Because everyone's a noob.
Good argument.
But yeah, so I think Snoke's going to be better than people think he is. Generally, because like you look at it and say, oh god, Intel agent. I'm like, yeah, No one uses Intel Agent until people use Intel Agent, and then it's stupidly good.
Yeah, exactly. It is such a huge advantage not guessing where your opponent's going to be, knowing where they're going to be. That's insanely good. Kylo Ren's crew card basically does the same thing. He has to spend a Force token. The only difference, of course, is I thought you had to do damage to him before he was able to do it, and now he can
That was his ship ability.
Okay, that's what it was.
Was if you attack him, he can trigger it. This is action to I'll show you the dark side.
Yeah.
The thing you need to remember now is that there are better pilot crits. It's not just the 2 blinded.
Correct.
Panicked pilot is in there now. You've got a few different. You've got some good.
I happen to have mine right here. Stun pilot is in there for pilot. Panic pilot is in there. What else do we got?
Do you want to? So stun pilot is still the old damage.
I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I should have. Stun pilot. After you execute a maneuver, if you move through an obstacle or overlap an obstacle, suffer 1 damage. We have Panic Pilot, which is gain 2 stress tokens, then repair this card. That's pretty brutal. We also have Blinded Pilot. When you perform an action, you can modify dice only by using Force tokens, and then you have to use an action to repair this card. I think that's it. And Blinded Pilot again, Stun Pilot again, Panic Pilot again. Correct. So, Wounded Pilot. There's 1 Wounded Pilot. After you perform an action, roll 1 attack die on a hit or crit result, gain 1 stress. So
Blinded Pilot isn't even remotely close to even being good like the way that it used to be.
No.
It's good in the same way that a jam token is good.
Right. I was just going to say, yeah, the jam. It's about a jam token.
Yeah, Blinded Pilot before just took the attack away, period. So at least you still get the swing. You're just doing it unmodified.
Yeah, so I think you wanted to move on to Coruscant, which I think we should do quickly because we're at like 38 minutes.
Yeah, well, I didn't think we were going to go. I thought these ones are going to be like 5 minutes and then we're going to move on to Coruscant, but we did get into some good discussion.
We had some fun. So I didn't want to spend too long on Coruscant anyway because it was a high-level event with a lot of good players. It was obviously invite only.
The first technically official 2nd edition tournament, it should be noted.
We're never going to have, like, the people who listen to this podcast are never going to play in a Coruscant meta. So going too deep into it, it seems pretty irrelevant. But I suppose
relevant enough to the fact that it was kind of cool to see 2nd edition being played on FFG's channel.
Yeah.
But as far as a test of the meta, most of those guys there hadn't had any experience playing in 2nd edition. The meta that was there was a very confined meta. They didn't play those lists to get there, and they were mostly, joking around, throwing stuff on the wall and see what would stick. So a lot of interesting stuff came out of it. But
if you believe the internet, all of the Americans were just having fun and really didn't care. Honest, we didn't care. We didn't win. Why would we have cared?
Oh yeah, that's because the Europeans
were all trying. Yeah. So congratulations to Thomas Frostner from the United Kingdom. He won the Coruscant Invitational.
Is that 2 UK folk in the last 2 major tournaments that were held there at FFG? Just throwing that out there.
Just saying. So he ran Darth Vader with supernatural reflexes, fire control system. Redline with trajectory simulator, proton torps, and proton bombs. Yeah, Sutnia fell with Ruthless because they had to take Ruthless. So
they had to by rules of the event, or
by rules of the event. Every Imperial list had to contain 1 copy of Ruthless.
Oh, I missed
minimum. That's what I mean. This meta will never exist. So part of list building was Imperials had to take a copy of Ruthless, but it was free. Oh. Rebels had to. Well, wait. They had to take a pilot talent, which was free. Rebels had to take Leia crew, which was free. But they had to take a ship that you could put Leia crew on.
Right, which isn't free.
Which isn't free. And Scum had to take Boba Fett crew. So not only did we have to take a ship that could take Boba Fett crew, they can't fly Boba Fett pilot.
Oh, for Pete's sake.
So yeah,
Actually,
right,
that would actually be kind of a fun alternative way of running X-Wing.
yeah.
Where you put restrictions out there, and restrictions that are true restrictions in the game, where Leia, you have to run a ship that runs Leia, Boba Fett, taking Boba Fett off the table. Now you have to think before you build. And if you're taking it seriously, it'd be pretty difficult and pretty fun, in my opinion.
I thought it was going to be okay when I originally thought that you had to take one list from each faction and use it once. But if you're taking it seriously, you run Imperials and take a free Ruthless, and oh well.
Yeah, you can put it on anything.
I have a ship that has a pilot talent slot. It goes on that ship. I don't care if I actually use it or not. But having to take a ship with a crew slot actually dictates play styles in the other two factions. And obviously Scum lose access to probably the most powerful ship in the current meta of 2.0.
Yeah, that's a fair argument.
So yeah, Thomas won. Congratulations. It was a good performance. No North Americans made it past the top 8, I want to say.
Yeah, no, it was really heavy loaded at that point.
Yeah, I know some people made it into the top 16, just checking now. You had like Nathan ID made it fairly high. Other recognizable names. But yeah, interesting lists. There was a lot of Duking Whisper, almost as if that was a good Phantom ad.
You're preaching to the choir, homie. I had nothing I'm still saying it's a good ship.
So, the crates actually, Zach called us out saying that he was on the show and had to argue that the Phantom was good against Nova Squadron Radio. It's like, one, it's not Nova Squadron Radio. Don't know who those guys are. They sound like losers. And two, the majority of the cast are all on board
that it's a good ship.
One of the ones, so Wedge, Dutch, and Garvin made it to the top 8, I believe.
Very nice.
Wedge, Dutch, and Garvin. That's awesome. Cinefell, Red Wine. We've had that one. What's a Red Wine?
Yeah, I heard that the Punishers were aplenty at that event.
Trajectory Simulator proton bombs, because it basically punished most of the powerful Scum ships not having shields.
Yeah.
The threat of the TIE Swarm, because obviously Imperials only had to take Ruthless, which kind of jumps into the TIE Swarm, but I think everyone got on board with that and ran Punishers with Trajectory Simulator instead of the TIE Swarm. So they out-meted themselves. But yeah, I don't know that there's anything else anyone wants to talk about from that event.
No, it's such a unique kind of event with those interesting restrictions like that. So I take everything that you're seeing out of there with a grain of salt. There were certain rules and restrictions to the list that were being applied specifically for the Scum and Rebel lists. So yeah, no, fun event. I'm glad they're done with it. Now let's move on to some competitive seasonings. I am curious though how I didn't hear anything, but since we don't have competitive rules and we know that we're talking, do we know how it was scored? Like, did they go by MOV?
It was normal tournament format, excluding those list building restrictions. So it was exactly as a normal tournament you'd play in your local store. Was
Final Salvo part of it? Does anybody know?
Yes.
Was?
Yes.
Okay.
There's tournament regulations now.
Yeah, but they're not in the tournament. I don't think they're in the tournament. At least when I really quickly went through them, I didn't see it, but they could be there. I could be wrong.
I can't remember.
I just know we haven't seen any official documentation yet for the rest of us to see what the official tournament rules are. All right, so I think that's going to do it. We had a rather lengthy news segment, but we're going to move on to the main segment. We're going to talk about turrets, and that's coming up right after this.
I don't know. Fly casual.
All right, we're back, and in the main topic tonight, we're going to be discussing turrets, the third pillar of X-Wing. Now, if you're listening to this in the future and you've never touched First Edition, those of us who grew up in First Edition have had a major shift in how we have to think about turrets. So back in the day of color TVs and of black and white TVs and covered wagons, turrets had a 360-degree firing arc all the time. They've been a part of the game since since Wave 1. You had Y-Wings with ion cannon turrets, and while they were an annoyance, they weren't necessarily meta-defining, Rebel convoy notwithstanding. So in second edition, they have changed significantly, and I think you need to kind of wrap your head around the idea of the mobile firing arc and how this works. And they come in two different varieties, with the basically covering 25% of the ship's firing arcs, or the bow ties that cover 50%, doing the opposite directions when they're firing. So this is something that you need to be able to keep in mind of, A, when you're flying a turret, and the best practices for trying to keep ships in arc. Because, of course, you can always spend that action to rotate the turret, but then you're not getting things like focus tokens or target locks to be able to modify your attack dice. And then the opposite side of that, when you're flying against them, how to kind of best stay out of those arcs and take away those attacks from that ship. We did get sort of a taste of this in First Edition when we were looking at things like the Shadowcaster. That was the first time we had ever even seen the mobile firing arc, and little did we know that it was a test bed for what was going to be turrets in second edition. I remember often some of the early strategies for flying that ship was just to fly it on the outside, keep the turret face towards the center, and just kind of NASCAR your way around the board so that you always had your arc facing in the correct direction. That's an easy early strategy. It does have its flaws, of course, if someone gets behind you. But now you've got all these other new ones. You've got, of course, we're Luke Gunner card notwithstanding, which basically returns us back to the state that we were in First Edition as far as I'm concerned. So thoughts on turrets, and let's start off with how to fly them correctly, how to keep ships in a firing arc.
So there's a few different connotations to when you look at turrets in general. That obviously you have where you have varying forms of attacks there. So some ships will maintain a forward arc and have an additional turret, like for Y-Wing with the upgrade. Then you've got ships that have a primary turret, which don't have a native firing arc built in. Then you've got stuff that I wanted to lump in where you have like the auxiliary arcs, where Fire Spray's got a rear arc now, and the YV666.
Don't forget the Space Cow.
Yeah, YV666 has got the 180-degree arc as well. So because of the way turrets have changed, and it's not just 360 all of the time, I felt that it was worth throwing all of those into this melting pot of basically the third pillar being able to shoot someone who isn't in your 90-degree forward arc.
Yeah, alternative firing arcs. Why don't we call them that?
Yeah. And then when you go to turrets specifically to address your original question, you've got to fly a bow tie differently to you do a single arc turret, because of the option, the access to upgrades. I remember, I think last week we had Zach on the show. He was talking about having faced, was it a Falcon he was flying against that had Bistan?
I believe so, yes.
It was either a Falcon or a Dash, maybe. It might have been a Dash.
I think it might have been Dash, now that you've mentioned that.
Yeah. Like Bistan Gunner lets you attack a ship that you haven't already attacked. So you can shoot two ships in the same arc, or you can shoot a different you just get to do a different attack, so you can like cover a lot of space. You've got access to stuff like Han letting you shoot at initiative 7 as long as it's out of a turreted arc. So you've got loads of weird and wonderful gunner cards that only affect these turrets. So like we were talking about when Sean brought it up earlier, of the gunner option. Primarily it's brought into buff turrets, because inherently from the conversion from 1.0, they have been nerfed. So this option's been brought into both them. And the two working together, I think, can lead to some pretty nasty combos.
Oh no, I completely agree. I think we have to address the elephant in the room quickly, which is the Luke Gunner card from the excuse me, the Rebel side, of course, which allows you to spend a force token to rotate that in any direction you want, thereby eliminating the alternative firing arcs. It does cost you the attack. So for me, I see a lot of debate over is Bisman better than Luke? Is Luke better? It depends on your playstyle, really.
A big part of it with turrets is planning. No matter how you want to look at it, it's the same thing with the fire sprays with the front and rear. It's the same thing with any of the ships that have these alternating or whatever you want to call them, fire arcs. It's about planning. One of the things that I realized when I was playing Sunday was the fact that I did not plan my arcs well. I did not plan my turrets well. There was a lot of times where I was moving turrets without target lock on a ship, which you have to plan ahead. It's a chess game in planning your moves ahead completely with these single point turrets. Now with the bow tie turret, a little bit different. There's a little bit of give and take in that because you're shooting out 2 lanes instead of 1, and you can mistake and still get lucky and have something in your front or rear or sides or however you're lined up. But the biggest thing about turrets is that they're definitely different than 1.0. It's all going to depend, like on the ships where turrets hurt the most as far as having issues. To me, is on the low pilot skill ships. It's on the Y-wings that are lower pilot skill. It's going to be on the lower pilot skill, YT-1300s. It's going to be on those. My reasoning for that is because if you're playing a lower pilot skill ship, you're probably not beefing it up as much as you would a Han or a Dash or other ships like that. You're just not going to spend the points. And the biggest thing is practice and planning. Something I didn't do ahead of time was practice or plan. And I think I had a total out of 3 games, 3 total ion shots. And the reason why that was is because they were front facing, and that was it. And that was my fault. I had a lot of chances where if I was thinking ahead, I could have had the ion shots and just didn't have them because I didn't think ahead. Or like in game 2, I forgot to set them to the front at the beginning of the game, and then I forgot to action them to the front or to the side I needed them prior to engaging. So I ended up getting stuck with these things on the outside, or I'm facing the wrong way. So now I either have no shot or I have main gun 2-die shot. And it did affect the game, and it affected my game a lot. And it's a good thing it's lessons learned. For me, I definitely know what to take away from those 3 games and the mistakes that I made if I plan on flying Y-wings or any ships with turrets, is you need to practice and you need to plan. And it's how you build to be able to use the turrets.
Now, one of the benefits I want to point out, though, like the Y-wing's a great example, but when you're looking at the single turret, if you really wanted to, you always have, in that instance, you have your primary firing arc, which fires obviously out the front of the ship, but then you can have that alternate firing arc pointing in an opposite direction, which doubles the amount of acreage that you cover on the field and what you can shoot at. So for me, I don't know that if unless in special instances, I don't know that I'd always have it locked forward. I might have it locked to the side, and especially if I deploy far right on my side of the board, having that turret facing in, so that I basically have 180-degree firing arc. Granted, it's with 2 different weapons, but it does give me a much wider field of vision to fire targets at.
It does, but it's a limiting still, even in that regard. I agree. One of the big things is range. It's a 1 to 2 weapon, so you're losing ability on range 3. It's Also, the fact that if you're using ships to joust, it's almost worthwhile not to put them on. If you're going to play a joust game, which is what 2 of the 3 of my games were definitely joust games, but in my opinion, all 3 were joust games, just because the lack of ships in 2.0, you're kind of pushing to a joust meta. I think if you're playing Scum, it's a little bit different because of Fenrau and Boba having the alternate, front rear allows Boba to be able to do things that most ships can't, which is fly past you and still attack. And that's the whole thing about it is right now, at least the way that my games went, I probably could have just done without the turrets and done something else or had a different strategy in the game. But it was really hard for me to play the turrets.
I do think it is a completely different ball game now with the turrets. Going slightly back to what Ed was saying about wanting to look at the Luke Skywalker gunner. The only case I can make for spending that 30 points is on Dash.
Yep.
Luke Skywalker gunner is 30 points because that's the power of giving you a force charge is worth about probably 8 points. I think it's currently valued at. So you're looking at around about 18 to 22 points for the ability to guarantee yourself a shot with this turret every turn. Because that's what it does. There is no skill involved. The only choice you have is which ship you want to shoot at that is at range 1 to 3 of you.
Yep, it's X-Wing on easy mode, and you're firing with 3 attack dice. Most likely, you're target locked as well. So then it becomes pretty brutal. On other ships, though, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to bring up. I have the Rebel Dengaroo for you. If you want to play X-Wing on easy mode, this is one I will try at some point just to trash myself. So you want to take Dash Render, who is in the YT 2400.
Yeah.
So 4 attack dice, bow-tied turret, 2 agility, 6 hull, 4 shields. He has the focus target lock, red barrel roll, and white rotate action. Not that you'll ever use that white rotate.
Nope, never.
Give him expert handling to make that barrel roll white. Give him the Outrider title, so that means you ignore obstacles, and also, while you perform an obstructed attack, the defender rolls 1 fewer defense die. After you fully execute your move, if you move through or overlap an obstacle, you may remove one of your red or orange tokens. So you can move through debris and still clear stress, but you ignored it anyway. So what it actually means is you can remove an ion token because you didn't gain the stress from... And then you have Luke Gunner on top of that. Then that's 150 point shit. So yeah, it's X-Wing on easy mode.
No trick shot?
No trick shot? Expert handling. I want that white barrel roll. So I never want to be stressed. I want that dial open so I can abuse the fact that my can be anywhere I want it to be.
Yeah, good argument.
And then 48 point Janos. And this is just troll. This is troll as you like. Squad leader and electronic baffle on Janos. So she can coordinate Dash to give him an extra action. And that can be before or after his move, depending on, because they're both the same initiative value. Electronic baffle lets her remove a stress token in exchange for damage at the end of a round. And her ability, obviously, if you're not stressed, so if you don't do a red coordinate from squad leader, if you do a normal action, which I would probably advise, you can make Dash's attack a 5 dice primary, which is always shooting at someone.
Focused and target locked. That's X-Wing on easy mode right there.
Yeah, you lose because at some point you need to be killing a ship a turn with Dash. So if they've got a ship with 6 hull, unlucky, you probably did it wrong. But
yeah.
That's the epitome of the old turrets, and that's how they're valued now. they are valued that highly that one of these ships and that's a bare bones dash, and it's 150 points.
Yeah, and you're really paying a premium for the ability to do that. So others, though, when you're looking at, that's a great example, and that's a great example of how to do it the ultimate way. But most folks aren't going to be spending the points to do that. Most of them are going to be taking the Y-wings. Most of them are going to be taking the other turrets that are in the game. For me, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. I'll let you talk. My point specifically addresses the bow tie turrets. I'll come to that once you do.
That's exactly where I was going to go. So by all means, please go ahead.
So what I was going to say is that the majority of ships that have access to the bow tie, so that is the turret that can shoot out of 2 arcs, have access to something that will either let them do an ordnance-based attack out of the front, or do something out of the rear, so like dropping devices and stuff like that. So a good way of maximizing your coverage is having them pointing out the left and the right side of your ship, and then making sure you've thrown a missile onto it. So if you want to run an outrider that isn't dash, you can take... I've completely lost it now. There you go. We can do a wild space fringer with nothing other than you can go concussion missiles, just for the sake of argument. It's like 94 points, and that gives you full coverage out of the left and right, 3 dice at range 1, 4 dice range 2 to 3. Out of the front, you get a shot. As long as they're not at range 1 of you, you can shoot out with your concussion missiles. And that gives you good coverage. So abusing that kind of thing, if you want to be good with turrets, is where I would go.
See, I was thinking something similar, going back to our friend the Y-Wing, with doing bombs instead of missiles. So where you can get the forward arc there, you've got the side arc either left or right with the turret, with the ion turret, and then you've got a bomb out the rear. So you're basically covering 270 around you. You only have that one quadrant on the ship that is undefended with some type of attack. So it's interesting that you went that direction, because I was thinking the same thing with Y-Wings.
So the good thing about Y-Wings, and generally the ships that have that inbuilt forward arc, is that arc doesn't go away when you add a turret slot to them. The tricky ones become the ships like the Hawk and the Jumpmaster, which only have the single turret and don't have an inbuilt primary attack. So then you could have the choice of, do I want to fly this as if it was a normal ship? And if I'm flying Dengar, I'm pointing that arc forwards, and I'm never I'm never rotating it voluntarily unless I've messed up. And you're now behind me chasing me. Yeah, I'll do my red action to spin it around eventually. But if I'm flying Dengar, I'm putting it forwards because I can just fly it like a regular ship. The fact that it's a turret becomes irrelevant unless I need it. And
it's like an added bonus, really.
Yeah, and treating it like that rather than if you deploy it to the left and in deployment, and you've only got that, it telegraphs what you're trying to do. And unless you've got, some 3D chess thing of, I'm going to put it to the left side so that when I go right, he's not expecting me to circle that way. So when I swing my turret around, he'll never see it coming. Yeah, okay. But should you have just taken 6 TIE fighters and jousted?
Right. For less points.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So there's a rabbit hole of playing 3D chess with them, but don't be scared of just pointing it forwards and flying it like a normal ship. I think the Scum faction has the majority of the weird and wonderfuls.
As far as if we move that into the category of the alternative firing arcs, yeah, I would agree, because you do get that YV666 that has that 180, which is a whole nother animal, because it's so hard to get out of the firing arc of that damn thing, at least in the onset of the game. Once you're behind it, that's one thing, but
yeah, I was thinking as well. You've got the Lancer Pursuit Craft. It has a primary arc and a turret, so you can have the same as it currently was in first edition. You can have
anymore.
Yeah, you can have the 180 on a diagonal, There's no reason to double stack them anymore unless you're going for pilot abilities triggering.
Right. So let's kind of flip the conversation around a hair, and we'll talk about. So we've talked about what it's like to fly those ships that have those alternative firing arcs, specifically turrets mostly, but you're flying against them now. And it's interesting that you use the term telegraphing, because especially when you get into those low pilot skill ones, that's exactly how you have to interpret it. Because in order for them to spend the ability to turn that turret into a different direction, that tells you exactly where they're going, which tells you where you need to not be. And a lot of that is, again, good flying in anticipation as to where you think they're going to go. And there's like no magic formula to that. There's a magic formula to it. I haven't figured it out. But that is the obvious answer. Just be where they aren't to be able to neutralize the power of those turrets.
Well, I think when we bring it back into a conversation of the 4 pillars, the thing with turrets is that you pay for that ability. So if you're flying against turrets, you've got a couple of things you can leverage. You either leverage the jousting ability of your cheaper, more efficient list, and you just fly straight at them and try and... I'm not going to say all, but the majority of them are on the lower end of the agility spectrum. So you try to remove them quickly with mass fire. The other thing, you've got the other pillar of arc dodging. Arc dodging a turret. Turrets don't counter arc dodges as hard as they used to, because if your arc dodge is high enough pilot skill, getting in tight, so even if you're doing something like we spoke about, where if you've got a K-wing, for example, who's got it pointed left and right, and then a missile in the front and a bomb coming out of the back, that does still give you range 1 in front of them that you can just sit in. It's not ideal, but...
But it is a hole to hide in.
Yeah, you've got the back, because the bomb should only come out next turn. And, there's that kind of interplay that you've got to look at. So that kind of setup does still counter the arc dodger, but not as hard as it used to until the introduction of auto thrusters, I suppose. When it just became a turrets are now irrelevant game, unless it's TLT. I don't know.
Well, even at that, at range 3 with an auto thruster, even they became virtually irrelevant. But I do like the strategy of so you're right. There are 2 points on that one as far as the arc dodging. That's always the first area that I go, because if we're wrapping in those alternative arcs, I know that Boba Fett's really, really good. One of the spots I like to hide, I like hiding out in his flanks. You can't shoot me there. There's no bombs. There's no missiles. There's nothing coming out of it. That is a free zone to kind of float in there and take your pot shots from there. But when you're dealing with the smaller ships, yeah, I like the idea of, well, they're paying a premium for that. Just take it off the board.
Yeah.
Focus fire, get it down, because it is a powerful ability, and once it's gone, it's it's gone. It's unfortunate if we get into Sean's list. I'm surprised. I meant to mention this in the flight deck. That he didn't run 5 Y-wings. I was actually surprised to hear that he didn't do that, because that would have been a beast of a list to try to get through.
Yeah, I agree with that. But one of the things I looked at, it was, this wasn't a high-level serious tournament,
Oh, yeah, no, I understand.
And I didn't want to go with a list that...
No one wants to be that guy.
Yeah, but...
You wanted to still have friends when you were done.
Yeah, well, somebody still did show up at the swarm, so... I don't know. I just didn't want to play that list. I'd already played it once and had fun. Had a good time, but, was ready for something different and, still trying to get the feel for this game again. So,
do we want to quickly cover the alternative arcs in general as well, and any standouts for them? I know the Azatuk and the YV666 with the 180s seem pretty good.
Oh, God, yeah. No, so the YV666, whenever it first came out, that 180 firing arc is a tremendous pain. It definitely fell into the category similar to the old shuttle where once you're behind it, you're fine, but you have a large swath of the board that you need to fly through to get there. So it is going to get its shots. And there's legitimately like no other way around it. The only way to do it is to fly through and get around it or try to get out of range and try to circle it around to get it. And the Azatec, whenever it was introduced, put it on a smaller chassis, faster chassis, and not nearly and almost as heavy as hitting. So both of those ships have an extraordinary advantage coming in with those gigantic firing arcs.
One bit of advice I'd give for the fire spray or the front rear, so like the fire spray's auxiliary arc coming out of the back, would be like, if you're flying against it, if you force them into using the rear arc, yeah, they're still shooting you, but the use of that rear arc sacrifices a lot of the range control that they can do. When a fire spray is heading towards you, it's got its inbuilt boost, so it can get closer or not, as it dictates, but it's still on a medium base, so it's moving relatively quickly. So if you're behind it, you can start controlling that range a little bit better. If you've got more agility or a harder hitting attack, controlling that range becomes more important. So you can try and encourage them. Yeah, you're still going to get shot. As Ed says, the flanks are obviously the weakest point of it. But on the medium base now, it's a lot harder to flank a fire spray. And
I haven't tried it yet, so I honestly don't know.
I've managed to flank his Boba Fett in my game with my Boba Fett and Fen, but I did sacrifice Fen in the next round to do it. So I pushed through over half his health in 2 rounds of shooting and then had him dead in the 3rd round of shooting. So it was worth it. I was happy with the trade. But equally, had he played it differently, it could have gone differently. Again, I had the same thing as him, so I would, if he'd have done stuff to blah, 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 I'd have done stuff, whatever. But be wary of thinking you've got them in the flank because you're only a 1 bank boost away from being in the rear arc.
At range 1.
Range 1.
Yeah. That is a good argument. One of the better things that I remember hearing, I remember whenever the Scum version of the Fire Spray came out in Cass Scarlet. And Cass Scarlet's first edition ability was that if she were firing out of the rear firing arc, she had an additional attack die. So the thought process, of course, for everyone was, well, I'm just going to turn my butt around and make sure that I'm shooting out of the rear. The downside to that strategy is that you're flying out of combat. And all it takes is a shifty player to disengage, and then all of a sudden it's going to take you 2 to 3 turns to get back into combat. So while I agree with Chris's argument that the rear is a good spot to fire against, there's also the ability to disengage from that ship, and it's out of the fight.
Yeah, and that's what you have that option if you're in its rear arc. If you're in its front, you don't have the option to disengage it because it's still in control, especially if it's the higher pilot skill, higher initiative than you. You know, if I say pilot skill from now on, I'm just going to roll with it. I'm done correcting now.
One of these days, we'll do a drunken episode, and every time one of us says pilot skill or says something like push the limit or auto thrusters, we have to take a drink. It'll be a blast.
So my opponent was running at Guru, and it was like, I'll push to calculate. It's like, no, you won't. You will linked action calculate. Stop it.
I've not heard that one yet, the push to calculate, but that's actually a good point. Yeah.
Any of the linked actions, you push to do it. It's like, no, you don't.
No, you don't. There's no push. Yeah. It doesn't happen anymore.
But anyway, I wanted to go through as a final point any standout turrets for people. So
Dashes, I think, is the first one. That's the easiest, biggest one in the room. Mostly because of the amount of attack dice that are built behind that. That 4 attack dice is brutal.
I think the fact that it flips the game on its head of like not necessarily Dash, because if you build him, he gets to be so many points. But if you run a cheaper one with some supporting ships that want you to get in close, you have that conundrum now of, well, if I close in, Dash doesn't hit me as hard, but the other ships do. And you get some interesting ways to lull people into positional mistakes.
I'm still sad that they lost the donut hole. Because that was like a good, safe, hard counter to Dash. Is you just sit there at range 1. Just hang out there at range 1 and you're good.
You can. It's only 3 attack dice.
It's still
You
pretty
left that
brutal.
off.
It's still pretty brutal. So Dash obviously is the one that jumps out to me. One of the other ones is for. Are we just talking specifically turrets or?
You can do auxiliary arcs as well, I suppose. If we're going to do that, I'm going to quickly claim Boba Fett before anyone else. I'm so intelligent.
Absolutely. All right, so I don't know my scum as well. Do they still have the scum YV666 pilot that did better out of its... what was his name?
I know. No, Morello is the one you're thinking of. He's the one who can leave the table and come back now.
Yeah, so they stripped his ability around to now he's the one that can do it. So that actually has nothing to do with his turret. That has everything to do with his new pilot ability. Have you gotten the chance to do that yet, by the way? Complete aside.
Not yet. I've only played the Swarm and the Boba Fett list. But I do have plans for some maximum pardon my French, but maximum fuckery. I'm going to Tobias Beckett a rock into position I want it to be so that I can Boba Fett my 666 onto the rock in the place where I wanted it to be. Because I can move, I get to pick which order they're happening as long as they're not both on the same ship. So you can't put Tobias on the 666. So you put him on a quad jumper. You move the rock where you want it, you deploy on the rock, then you leave the rock to leave the table from the table edge. Then you can come back on the table edge whilst carrying a Z95. As long as it's not a national up, you can then launch a Z95 whilst your quad jumper just reverse a quad jumper off the table. His job is done.
He's done everything he's supposed to do. That's awesome. I'm surprised we've not seen more of that, to be honest with you.
The thing, it's not good. I'm not going to lie to you, man. It's not good, but that shit's fun.
It's hysterical.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to do it. I'll get the next game I do on stream, I will run. I'll figure that list out, and I'll keep it in the back pocket, like the full list, and I'll get it out, and I'll make sure it's a stream.
The only other one that jumps out to me other than that is the shuttle. It's one that I have, my list is prepared. The next time I get to the game store, I'm going to get the opportunity to try. One of the downsides of the shuttle in first edition, of course, was the minute you got behind it, it was going to kill you. Well, now it's got an alternative firing arc. And I'm really kind of curious to see what that adds to flying that ship. It's a completely different strategy at that point. Because before it used to be you'd come in, maybe it would attack at the end of the match. I don't know that it takes the ship completely out of the game anymore. No,
I think it's a solid choice.
So yeah, that one I'm really looking forward to flying. But of course I have an Imperial bias. I've not flown the aggressors yet to see if they're basically the Imperial version of a Y-Wing.
We want standout ones, not terrible ones. I don't think anyone's flying
exactly. And I'm not sold on them. I have 2 that are sitting over there. I don't know that they're going to get flown.
Sean, have you got any standout turrets?
I haven't gone that far, other than the Luke, the Luke Broken Dash, insane cost ship.
Yeah.
Right now, my focus is 2.0, so I'm not really out there yet in the expanded universe, and at some point I will be. But I want to have some fun just with the simplicity of list building again.
Yeah. Well, I've got 1 Rebel and 1 Imperial. The Imperial one we've not spoken about at all, and the Rebel one would be I think Miranda's so good still. Miranda will give her missiles and bombs, and it's like, oh, what? You think you're safe? Well, you were wrong.
But Kris, she doesn't do what she used to do. She's not as good as she used to be. That's what everyone said. The internet told me that.
I don't care. I'm not even going to play the meme game with you. I just think that Miranda is not even secretly good. I just think Miranda's good. And then the standout Imperial turret for me has got to be right.
Yeah.
So just the whole package of what Rack's ability adds. So the Decimator's already solid. So it is the bow tie turret, so 2 different arcs. It has a gunner slot if you want to use it. Imperials have some pretty nice gunners, by the way. 3 attack dice base, 0 agility, 12 hull, 4 shields. It's got a white reinforce. If you do that white reinforce with Rack, he gets the ability of, as long as you're attacking someone that is in that quadrant, whether in front or behind you, then you get to change 1 focus to a crit. So you get defensive reinforce, and it's like, oh, well, reinforce can't reduce the damage to a minimum of below 1, so it can't reduce to 0. No, but I've got 0 agility, but 16 health, and this token doesn't go away. So
just
every time you shoot, with the Dream, you're playing against a TIE Swarm who gets 2 hits with all 8 TIE fighters. Oh, I took 8 damage instead of being dead.
Yep, exactly. The point value alone on that reinforce is ridiculous.
Yeah. So Rack, he has a torpedo slot, so you can give him protons. He has a device slot, so you can give him a bomb. And
cover all the arcs.
Yeah. Anything else? I can't think of any reason why we're still talking.
No, that is pretty good.
You can do Fifth Brother is a good gunner. It gives you a force charge, relatively cheap at only 12 points, and he can spend a force charge to convert a second focus to a crit. You can. There's so much you can do. You can have Agile Gunner, probably don't. Veteran Turret Gunner, you can perform a bonus attack. So I think Fifth Brother's where I'd be looking there.
Especially in combination with his ability. If you're sitting down and you're like, oh, I rolled 2 focuses. Okay, so that's 2 crits.
And then if you want, you've got so much you can do. You can load up the Sith on this ship. You can 7th Sister, Vader, you Grand Inquisitor, pick any 2. So Rack would be my standout. Yeah, he's going to get expensive. I'd probably have him sitting around about 130 points.
Which just under dash points.
Well, 20 points under. Leaves you enough points to run probably a Whisper. I guess that you could still run Rack Whisper. And then put Vader on Whisper. Let's see. I think you can do this. I'm going to have to check now.
We'll do this live. Do it live!
Yeah. Okay, so you need Duke, and you want Vader as well. Oh yeah, loads of points. So without any other upgrades, I need a torpedo, because I said we would. Protons. Fifth Brother. Oh, I've got so many points left. This is scary good. We want protons. Yeah, so I've got with Whisper with Duke and Vader, and Rack with protons, torps and bombs, and Fifth Brother. I've still got 16 points left for an extra crew. So you can Grand Inquisitor, you can Palpatine, you can have...
Oh my god.
You can have Palpatine and a bid.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
So there's my standout Imperial turret.
All right, yeah, no, good call. Absolutely. I think I might have to... Can you send me that list when we're done here? I'm just going to have to give that one a try. All right, I think we've covered turrets. The next and final one was one that was added, which is the bombs and devices, and that's going to cover the 4 pillars. So that's going to be on our next episode.
Yeah,
so,
as I said in the flight deck, I feel like we're going to put ordnance in there to cover off the Alpha Strikes as well, because that's slightly different to jousting. We did touch on it in a jousting section, but I feel like it deserves its own mention.
Yeah, no, I think it's a completely different strategy. I agree. Absolutely. All right, fantastic. So we are going to go ahead and move on to close out the show right after this.
I find your lack of faith disturbing.
All right, we're back, and we're going to go ahead and close out this fantastic show. Enjoyed this one. We, of course, had some questions we threw out to the Facebook page, and then some that were follow-ups after we recorded the show. So as our man Chad is not here to read the questions, and I try to avoid looking at them so they are a surprise to me, I will leave it up to Kris to read some questions from the fans.
Okay, so from when we recorded our last show, I forgot to post that submissions were closed, so because we're not douchebags, or overly douchebags, we will follow up with these questions, and then I'll remember to close them for this time. So from last week, we had Harrison Sharp. Out of extended and second edition formats, which one do you think is better for tournament play? Are more options better, or would you keep it simple?
I think I've been pretty vocal on this one. Myself, I would keep it at second edition. I think that fixes a lot of the issues with the new factions coming out. I think it fixes Resistance having so few ships. It fixes First Order having so few ships. And what it does, it allows us to look at the meta in a smaller environment and find those fixes. If you open up the valve and the fire hose and just release everything out there, you're going to have a whole bunch of things. It's going to take a long time for that meta to settle down because you're going to find one broken thing, they'll fix that. They'll find another broken thing, fix that. And just continue this whack-a-mole until 2 years from now, we've finally gotten everything to the correct point values of where they should be. Whereas if you just do it at second edition, it gives you a much smaller pool of cards, a much smaller pool of potentially broken things, and you can fix them as each release happens, as opposed to all at once. At least that's my opinion.
I think with limiting will bring limited players. I think large tournaments, if they're 2.0, at least in the beginning, because there's a lot of people that just don't want to play 2.0. They want to play extended. We're finding this in Omaha, where there's a lot of people. We started out 2.0 and then went to extended. One of the things that I brought up in Omaha was, if you're going to do that, if you're going to make everything wide open, you still have to cater to the new player. So go with 2 lists. Everybody brings an extended list if they choose, but everybody has to bring a 2.0 list. You could run tournaments the same way, but I do think there will be some limitations. There will be people that don't show up to a 2.0 tournament that show up at an extended and vice versa.
Well, yeah, and that's a good point. I'd make the argument that if you're brand new to X-Wing, second edition, you heard second edition coming out, and this is the place you're going to be jumping off, you don't have that back library problem that the rest of us have. You only have access to second edition ships. So to be able to go into a pool of ships that you don't even have access to anymore. Sure, there's some other third-party vendors that are going up. I know a lot of the places around here don't even have first edition ships on the board anymore. Most of it's all second edition. How do you get them? Like, you can go to eBay, you can go to other places like that, but I think that helps those new players coming to board that this is all I have to worry about instead of overwhelming a new player with all of that.
So I wanted you guys to get your thoughts out first. So there are some rumors coming out of Coruscant that OP spoke on this topic, that there will be varied formats. So there won't, for the hyperspace, I believe it is, they will rotate limitations that are neither pure second edition or pure extended. So you might have, this is by no means a quote or anything, this is just my now speculation, but for example, you could have a Mandalore only scum list. If you want to play scum, you can only take Mandalorian ships. So you can only take protectorates and fire sprays, and that's the only thing you have access to. They can limit it as much or as little as they like. That's a little bit too extreme if you use that specific example, but don't take that as an example. It was just for instance, they could. But
so what you're saying is, if they wanted to, the first, because this is going to happen, this is happening in halves, that the first half of the competitive season could be second edition only. The second half could be extended.
Yeah, there will be support for both formats. I feel like second edition, Sean's right, second edition is boring at the moment. I think once we're up to 7 factions, that is not the case anymore. And I think that becomes more interesting to me. I know that becomes more interesting to me than playing extended. But
Yeah.
at the moment, extended is more interesting because of the options, but equally, it's less balanced.
Well, then the question becomes: is that question that I think Sean had brought up a couple of shows back, where they're like, so when they bring those additional factions in, and we're talking the Clone Wars factions, Clone Wars isn't extended. Clone Wars is second edition. So when you're playing second edition, does that eliminate those two factions from extended? And I would think it would. And then you're basically playing two different metas.
Yeah.
One's the extended and one's second edition.
I feel like that can be healthy if they handle it correctly. And I know we joked about
I agree.
We joked about it last time of standard and legacy is effectively
or standard and modern was the direction I would have gone. But yeah, no, that's it. If you go back to the Magic the Gathering example, they have a standard set of standard cards. This is the stuff that is currently legally playable in tournaments. But if you want to use those older things, there's this other format that you can go down to and play it that way. I agree. I think, and both of those environments are healthy and can be kept up. I mean, at some point in time, extended is going to catch up to second edition. Sometime down the road, wave 8, whatever it turns out to be, all the ships.
I'd argue that we never need a Wookiee space canoe.
That does open that question whether that happens or not.
I think you need to have for me. I think you have to have a balance in between the two, and I know that and I'll probably repeat this a million times, but I really think that if you're going to do this and do this correctly, you should do it where list building is hangar-based style. Everybody brings a second edition list. That's the mandatory. Everybody who wants to can bring an extended list. And then at the table, now I know that this will screw up everybody's stats and everything for tournaments, but because games are one-on-one, they're not driven meta, or they're not driven whole tournament wide, where players can decide at the table, hey, I want to play extended, so both players play extended. Or if you have a player that doesn't have extended, you still have the option of 2.0, and then you're not excluding anyone at all from the ability to come to a tournament and the ability to play in a tournament.
Yeah, I think it's more the ability to place in a tournament can suffer if you run an extended tournament and a new player doesn't have access to a decimator. They can't run that rack build that we just spoke about. So, is it fair? Is it not? Does it really matter? If the powerful lists are in second edition, they're also currently in extended. So,
yeah, that's a good argument.
So
but if the more powerful lists are in extended, they're not in second.
Yeah, that's the point that I'm looking to make. And the way you solve that is you nerf the shit by increasing the points out of everything in extended until the good lists are in second edition, and as if by magic, FFG has their problem solved.
Yeah, like extended rotates itself out. All right, so let's play a game. We are here at October 11th, 2011, kind of peek behind the magic on when we recorded. We're going to say, for sake of argument, that's how FFG is going to do it. That they're going to go second edition and extended. Half the year this, half the year that. What's Worlds played?
Worlds will be played its own unique format with its own unique rules building.
Yep. Since I think that's what Coruscant was the test bed for that.
Yeah.
That's an interesting take on that. That's a good point. Because I always saw that those hyperspace events where they did stuff like that, where they, remember before they were having you vote on ships, these are the ships that they're going to run. That was kind of a test of skill in those for those players. But Worlds always seem like this is the competitive event. This is the hyper competitive event. I'm curious if they add those types of restrictions to ships, how that'll work.
Yeah. I'm going to cut you off, Ed. I feel like Harrison's had his money's worth. If you want to talk on this more, we'll do an in focus on it. If you want to talk on it more, well, there you go, Harrison. We don't know. 10 minutes of we're not really sure. Ian Courtney. Ian Courtney follows up from last week with the generic K-Wing seems surprisingly good. Yay or nay? Have people been too early to judge some ships?
I think it's way too early to judge any ship, to be perfectly honest with you. I think there are certain early standouts that come out that are obviously super good immediately. Dash is super good. Supernatural Vader is super good. And I think players are flocking to those because they want to win games at the table. And they're ignoring the rest of the field and haven't really had the time to experiment with those ships and those upgrades and find out which pieces bolt together the best. So I think it's way too early. We think that those two ships are good now, but there could be a combination that someone hasn't unlocked it that just blows those out of the water. And as far as the generic K-Wing, I've not personally flown it, so I can't say for argument. I've flown against it, and it seemed pretty good.
I think it's good. I think you need to leverage the fact that you can have missiles and the turrets pointing sideways.
Exactly.
And leverage that slam, because if you're just leveraging the base level of it, you can do it better with other ships because you do pay for that privilege. So barrage bombers would be a preference to K-Wings if you're just looking to line up. But K-Wings, you wouldn't fly them in formation. You spread them out across the table, cover massive areas. You do really well with them, but I still think I'd rather go Miranda and some different supporting ships.
Yeah, I think that was the problem with the K-Wing. In my honest opinion, that was the problem with the K, and a lot of other ships fell into this. I'm not just singling out the K-Wing. I think that was the problem with the K-Wing in first edition was the fact that Miranda was so good. Nobody ever ran anything else. Yeah. Like occasionally you'd see another one, or occasionally you'd see a Warden Squadron, but for the most part it was Miranda or nothing. If you saw a K-Wing on the board from 20 feet away, you're like, all right, he's running Miranda. You knew what was you were getting into in that game. So because she was so good and so meta-defining for so long, you never really got to see any of the other ones.
Do you think people have been too quick to judge and write off ships, Sean?
Always. That's human nature. I mean, that's just what we do. You know.
Well, and keep in mind too, FFG's design structure is that there are no irrelevant ships now, and they have the inbuilt mechanics into it now. But be able to adjust points that if there is an irrelevant ship, they can adjust the points to make it relevant.
See, but I think you have 1.0 bias in 2.0, or 1.0 bias in extended still. You know, give this time. We're a month into this now. You know, there's nothing out there that's relative to judge anything on at this point. There's been no major tournaments. There's been no. We don't even know what the tournament format's going to be. So, yes, I think people are way too quick to judge ships. Even I've been a little bit, you know, to where there are ships that I'm still biased against. You know, Imperials. You know, other than the Decimator, I don't fly Imperials, and right now, I do have a kit. Don't get me wrong. I did upgrade the Imperials, but that's more for my son than me. But my ultimate goal is to put a swarm on the table.
Okay. I think that's that one dealt with. So now we're on to this week's question. So I'm going to quickly post the questions in our course.
Professional podcasting at its best.
Yep. So we have Zachary Johnson. Has second edition given us any new ways to do leagues? Question mark.
Yes and no. I mean, it all depends how you want to look at leagues. If you're looking at leagues as a 2.0, it means you're bringing new players in. If you're looking at leagues as an extended league, it's all the experienced players. So, yes and no. I mean, leagues will be leagues, but it all depends how you manage that league. That's the key piece to it.
I would definitely say yes, in that the official squad builder has a custom format built into it. That is new and lets your league organizer, your commissioner, however you want to phrase it, choose how they want to run their own league and have less pushback from players. I mean, I was a pretty strong, pig-headed TO organizer, event coordinator anyway. So I've run leagues in multiple ways. I don't think second edition has given me any new tools. I think it's just made it easier to implement and show to people.
Yeah, and I think you stole a little bit of my thunder on that one, but with the app and them already opening that door a little crack, we're saying that you can create your own types of events and restrict whatever you want. If your play group decides that Supernatural Vader is broken, all of a sudden you now have a league where Supernatural Vader is not legal. Because it's giving you that option to say, our event is running that this ship is not legal. We're banning this ship, or we're banning that particular upgrade, or we're like they have opened that door to allow you to run leagues in that fashion. The only other concern is like we still don't know the official scoring, and I think it's the only. I know I keep nitpicking on this, and I know it's going to end up being MOV. I know it's going to end up being Final Salva for that in my heart of hearts. But without the official documentation, right now we're just kind of just throwing chips on the table and counting scores like we think they're supposed to be counted.
Okay, so I have Robel Nicotone. Do you think that those that use the 2.0 path to Worlds will have a significant disadvantage to those using Extended? I'm not.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't.
Yes.
I don't think he's actually talking about. So I don't think they're actually talking about the use of a separate path. I think it is talking about what Sean and we were talking about in the earlier question of if I only have access to 2.0. And at the moment, I would say not a significant disadvantage because Boba Fett and Fang Fighters are extended, so 2.0, and I would put those against anything Scum can throw out in extended. Supernatural Vader and TIE Fighters, and the Reaper isn't as good as it was in 1.0, but it's still solid. It's all second edition. Rebels suffer the most, but hey ho.
Yeah, no, I would agree with that.
That's actually where I was going to go, is the Rebels. If you're trying to do it with the Rebels, you're really going to have a difficult time because there's just, yes, X-Wings are good now, but they're not world beaters.
No.
You know, they are definitely limited. They're still susceptible to swarms. I think the interesting thing is that we'll see swarms again for a while. That'll be a cool thing.
I'm excited by that.
I think the main point to address in this question is what I said earlier about the news. The talk from Coruscant is that there will be varying restrictions on the formats that will qualify for Worlds anyway. So I can only assume that they will snip out the bigger advantages from Extended to even that playing field. Would be my guess.
I still hold on to the hope to say that Worlds is second edition only, and in which case, if you are taking second edition, then you're at an advantage because you're used to playing in that meta. I still like the idea of the two metas, the two formats of the game. You're either playing second edition or you're playing extended, and if this year they decide that Worlds is going to be second edition and next year it's extended, that's one thing. I don't think that we have enough knowledge to genuinely answer that question because we're not going to know until OP announces this is how tournaments are going to be run and this is the formats, because that's going to establish it. If FFG came out tomorrow and said, here's the official tournament rules, all tournaments are going to be second edition, extended goes away. That meta is completely for fun. That is, you can work your way to get there, but once you get to World, that's what the competitive players are going to be playing in, and vice versa. If they decide to say that extended is the way they're going to go, that's where everyone's going to go. So without knowing that, it's difficult to answer that question. I think right now, if you're just flying ships and getting an advantage, or getting flying ships and getting experience, you're at an advantage.
Okay. The next question is from Scott Weasel. And this is actually not a stupid question, so thanks, Scott. I know you're not just doing it to annoy me all the time. What changes do you think they are going to make to Epic format? Before you guys jump in, Chad did leave a comment why he's not here, because Chad is equally as amused by Scott's questions as I am. Chad's vote is for drop it completely.
Oh, no. I don't think they're going to do that. We know they're going to do something.
So I'll jump in. I would say that I would drop Epic format completely.
Really?
And add the ships into the extended.
I agree. Yeah, there's no different. I mean, You don't have to have it called Epic. You can just Epic ships can be part of extended.
Yeah.
And you play it. And then you just have huge ship rules compared to, what they can actually do.
Remember, when you use the AppEd, what's the points limit that's built into it? What does it tell you that you're now over points at?
200.
No, it doesn't.
Ah.
It just tells you how many points you are at. There is no limit to the number of points. So I will add in the Raider to Extended and cost it at 200 points. Or 201 points.
So that you could never fly it in a tournament or anything like that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
I still have my hopes that Epic will. It's the thing that I really wish they had done with it, and they never got around to doing it because they were so focused on the dogfighting 100-point games in first edition.
They ran Team Epic at Coruscant. You had to take first edition stuff to play it, but they ran Team Epic at Coruscant.
Yeah, and I will grant you that. In my opinion, what I would hope that they would do is they would come up with a 400-point format that allows for epic ships, that it makes it for the 3x6 boards as opposed to the 3, and that it's its own game and it is its own meta. I think it would blow my mind really to have access to these ships that they've already sold to players, and they're really kind of into that format where, well, you bought the ships, you want to make sure we're not invalidating the ships that you bought, that they're going to do something with them. If you were to bring them into down onto a 3x3 table, that becomes really difficult.
So
some of those ships fly slow.
I think my point is that I think the Epic format has failed as a format. The player base for Epic does not exist. My solution to that would be we'll roll them into the normal game somehow and make them that ridiculous that you can't actually take them in a normal game. So it's not an Epic format anymore. It is normal X-Wing that I'm choosing to play at a different points value using the limitations of the custom format. So I don't feel like they should put any effort into making an Epic format. Make the Epic ships work and then let people do what they want to do with them.
So I would challenge that, and my counter to that is the reason why I feel that the Epic format failed was because it was never supported. It never got home-based support from FFG. There was never any specific alt-art cards for Epic ships or Epic upgrades, except for the ones that you got at World, which basically had the tag on it. There were never any official events or official tournaments other than team tournaments that they ran is like little filler things like that.
I don't think they ever had that in the plans, though. Epic was never a format that they would support, because if they did, then why would you put Armada out? You know, that's
the other good counter. It really is.
Yeah, you know, it's the concept of, I really think they wanted to put big ships out. So Fantasy Flight made big plastic ships, and they were able to put them out and put them in a game. They were able to design their own ship. This is something people may not remember, but they designed their own ship that became two ships, actually, that became canon in the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, the Raider being the first.
Correct. And that's my point, is that I just think that Epic, I agree with Kris in this, that you make Epic a playable format outside of the actual extended and 2.0 format. But you're putting it just in the extended, make the ships 200, too many points to play in a standard X-Wing tournament. And there you go. You have it now. Fantasy Flight, I don't think will ever support it other than as a side event or as an extra event.
So, as a TO, I've run Epic events, and our average turnout for just a standard monthly tournament varies between 8 and 20 people. So looking at 12 to 14 on an average, just for a normal seasonal kit event with no real build-up, no extra prizing, just come and play a tournament. When we get asked to make it an Epic one, you're looking at between 2 and 6 people. We're running the same event, so the prize, we're not giving out Epic prizes, we're giving out X-Wing prizes, which are usable by anyone. There's no requirement for people, at the time there weren't requirements for people to bring Epic ships, so people didn't have, people could have ran 8 defenders and had a list. They didn't need to go and buy an Epic ship to play, but they just didn't care. It wasn't the lack of the event, it's the inclination to not want to play a 3-hour game where setup takes half an hour to even get started, and all of these energy management rules, and it being overly complex for what it adds.
I guess I live in a very spoiled world where I was able to participate in the Outrider Cup for as long as we did. And it was a fantastic event. And it was one of those things for having a competitive Epic event that triggered
Would
that.
Outrider have been as fun if it was only Epic? Because you played one round of Epic.
Oh, God, no. Oh,
there
God,
you go.
No.
There you
God,
go.
No.
If you want to run an Epic event, you don't play one game of Epic and 2 games of Standard.
But
play
I've gone to
3 games of
40K tournaments that would have fallen into that same category, where it is like if you're in your GW buddy is mine as well. When you're playing the 180 boy Orc Green Tide list, that guy takes 45 minutes just to set up his moves, and you're only getting to turn 3 because he's moving 180 models across the board.
But every game is against. It's not even against. It's you're playing it and your opponent's playing it every game.
Yeah. All right, you may have won your counter. I guess it's difficult for me to sit down and look at those beautiful Epic ships over there and know that they're not going to get flown again.
I think
that's hard.
If you make them usable in Standard without them being abusive in a 200-point game, I feel like they come off a shelf more.
So, like, for example, like the small ones, like the Gazanthi and the GR90. Like those...
Realistically, if you could field a GR90 in a Standard game and it was basically what it was, but it didn't. Hell no, it still crushes. It doesn't have an attack, still crushes ships, costs 120 points.
Yeah, still has all the slots for the support and stuff like that. I could see that.
You take out the Epic only upgrades and make you make it work somehow, and you can just use it on a normal table in a normal game. I don't think you play it competitively because I feel like if you rush for a ram, you're going to end up flying off a table. It doesn't have any guns. The jam's good, but it's not good enough to carry the rest of your list. So to make it worthwhile, you need extra points to support it, which is perfectly doable.
It's the same argument with the Gazanthi, too. The Gazanthi does have guns. It's pretty cool, but where it really excels in the Epic format as a carrier, where you get behind the lines and you're dropping TIE fighters behind people, that's where it really becomes into be a really fantastic strategic ship. I guess we'll see. I myself, obviously, am clearly in the minority. If Chad were here, it would be a 3-1 vote that everyone just wants to see Epic go away. I
didn't say I wanted it to go away. I want to still be able to use my Epic ships, but I don't want it to just be its own game mode that you have to tick these boxes to be able to play. If I want to be able to... So the way I describe this, it's going to be a very 40k analogy now. Mm-hmm. When Apocalypse was originally released, for people who aren't in the know, 40k used to be played and balanced in the UK as a 1,500 point standard game. They released Apocalypse, which was created and balanced to be a 3,000 point game. My point was that I didn't need Jarvis Johnson to come and hold my hand and tell me how to have fun with all of my toys. With my toys, I can have fun with them. And that's what I feel like Epic format is at the moment. It's FFG saying, if you want to enjoy playing with these, this is how you have to do it. So just tell me how it work, and I'll make them work. Just don't worry about it. Leave it in my hands.
And in that same respect, GW did the same thing that FFG did, except in more so, where they introduced Titans into the game, these big, gigantic models, and they were super expensive. Very similar to these, where you spent a lot of money on them, and for the most part, they just sit on a shelf unless someone says, hey, do you guys want to play Apocalypse today?
Yeah, and do you see more Titans and Knights being used now than when Apocalypse was released?
Well, you do now in GW because they've got the whole Night Titan list. They've added smaller Titans into the standard game, and
which one works better for getting people playing with the cool big toys?
Smaller ones, yeah,
making them usable in normal games.
Right. All right. Now you've sold me. You've definitely sold me in that. All right. Okay. Next question.
So the final question, and I'm going to apologize to Kenny Dugas now, because I've been through every ship in the game and I'm not 100% on what he's talking about. So I'm going to ask a question and then let you guys deal with it.
Thanks. Throw that hand grenade into the room.
Yep. So sorry, Kenny. If you want to follow up on the Facebook group and let us know which ship, if we get it wrong, we'll do it again next time. But what upgrade card would staple onto the Baroness?
The Baroness?
Yes.
He's talking about Countess Ryad.
I'm assuming either Countess Ryad or Suntia Fel as the Baron, or Duchess. Those are the only three I can put it in. It's definitely one of the Imperial ones.
All right. So we're kind of off script here. Let me pull my card out. I thought her title was the Baroness.
Countess Ryad?
All right. I literally got my book out of cards.
Okay, so are we assuming he means Ryad then, and we can go?
No, even on her title card, it says Cutthroat Politico. It does not say Baroness.
No, I'm pretty sure I checked every card I could think.
The Baroness.
So I think it's either Duchess, Countess, or Baron Suntia Fel. So those are the three. So what would you staple to Suntia Fel? We'll start with that one.
Predator? It's already kind of sugaring off his primary one anyway. Either that or Outmaneuver.
Outmaneuver was the one I thought, but it's pretty expensive. Let's have a double check, make sure. In fact, no, there we go. I would, because I'm a scumbag, I would go hull upgrade and hull up. For Fel, I would go hull upgrade or afterburners.
Hull upgrade?
In fact, no, would you? Yeah. So if you could go. No, it's a 3 agility, so hull upgrade's expensive. Sorry, yeah, ignore that one. I'd go afterburners because that lets you boost and barrel roll and not be stressed.
Ooh, there you go. So I looked up. I went to fandom for Countess Ryad just to take an aside. Her title is officially a Countess, not Duchess.
Yeah. Sean, do you have an upgrade Baroness you'd always take on Fel? Or Baron Suntia Fel? Ace of Legend?
I really don't. I'm not in this fight.
He's not an Imperial one.
Okay, no. So the next one we'll do is Duchess, because that is also a rank, or a court rank. So for me, this one's easy. If it is Duchess that you mean, I would be taking Fifth Brother every day of the week because it's a gunner slot that doesn't need a turret and gives her a force point. Or hit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No argument here. I think we're on the same page on that one.
And then the final one was Countess Ryad. This one's harder.
I don't think so.
Okay, you go first then.
Juke.
You go Juke.
She's going to 3 maneuver that she's always going to have the evade token. Juke's always going to proc.
Advanced Senses is so good on a defender.
I know.
So the arguments here are obviously. No, if you're only having one upgrade, I'll agree, Duke.
Okay.
Yeah. If you're only allowed to take one, and I'll probably be more inclined to take Advanced Senses on Rexworth for the extra pip of initiative. Because you don't get the evade token if you Advanced Senses one of your actions. So you don't get to activate Duke, but you get to it for your move. So, yeah, we'll go Duke.
All right, so hopefully that answered that question. If there is a character that is, please let us know which one it was.
Yeah, if we didn't get the right one, Kenny, please let us know, and we will address it next time.
All right, well, we're getting here towards my pumpkin time anyway. Get that work thing I got to get for tomorrow. So I will thank everyone. I know we have a few things we need to drop here first, so Kris, I'll go ahead and let you go in on yours. We've got a few links and a few places to go and all that fun stuff, and some Patreons to thank.
Yeah,
more of them, by the way.
I've got to do all of Chad's stuff as well, haven't I? So,
unfortunately, it does fall to you, my friend.
Yeah, thanks everyone for listening. If you want to give us any feedback or get in touch with us, you can contact us through our Facebook page, which is Lack of Focus Podcast. You can find us on Dice H YouTube channel, which is, if you type Dice H into YouTube, it'll come up. We have
You'll find it.
lackoffocuspodcast.com should bring up our website and our Podbean feed.
Correct.
We are on SoundCloud under Dice Hate Productions as well. Oh, you should definitely check out our Patreon page because we have extra content on there which doesn't appear anywhere else. I'm just going to edit that bit out. Apparently, my food's coming back up. Yeah.
New Patreon?
Yeah, I'm just trying to make sure I've not missed anything. New Patreons. So we have a thank you to Dice 8 Productions, Edward Horn, and Sean Dorsey. Those guys
mediocre
are
podcast host at best.
all losers, those three. Then Gustavo, Jerry, Peter, and Ronnie, I believe, were the 4 previous ones. And we have Tommy Adams and Michael Dew joining the patrons. So thank you, guys.
Rock. Thank you. Really appreciate it.
Basically, really helping towards covering all of the costs of actually hosting the podcast. So I do really appreciate that. Especially if we are hitting our targets. You guys have been awesome. I think we didn't actually lose money last month.
Woo!
It covered the hosting and the editing software. So that was well worthwhile. For you new guys, as soon as you get to the $5 mark, I will get your Lack of Focus tokens in the mail for you. So if you haven't updated your addresses, please make sure you do.
Oh, they look like this.
Yeah.
See, this could be you. You could have Lack of Focus tokens on the board.
Yeah, so again, even if you don't want to sign up to actually give us any money on Patreon, please make sure you do check it out. We do have extra content on there, and make sure you're spreading the word. We are starting to grow again. We're getting new followers all the time. New notifications come through near enough every day for Podbean and Spotify and all of that stuff coming through. It's awesome. I'm happy to see us growing. We're still new as a podcast. We've been in the game for a while, but we're not the same show anymore. So make sure you are giving us feedback. We're quite open to any format changes, anything you'd like to see or hear from us or for us to do differently. I wanted to give a big shout out to Bruno for Millennium Condor. So if you are of the French-speaking persuasion, make sure you check the podcast out.
Have you made your appearance yet?
I cannot say. I believe the first and second rules of Intergalactic War Master quizzes is you don't talk about Intergalactic War Master quizzes.
But, I'm going to have to listen. I can't wait.
Really good guys. Make sure you listen to him. I think he appeared on OCX with Kris Brown the other week as well. So if you don't speak French and want to listen to Bruno talk X-Wing, check those guys out. What have I missed? I must have missed something.
Email address is the only other thing I can think of.
Lack of Focus podcast at gmail.com. Pretty sure I got that one in there. Make sure you're spreading the word, guys. Really appreciate everyone who listens.
All right. Absolutely. Always a pleasure to talk to you, by the way, my friend.
Yeah, it's good to still be doing this.
Thanks for all the side stuff on my YouTube channel. Appreciate it. You rock, Kris. Sean, always good to talk to you, my friend.
Yep, good to be back. Hopefully I'll be consistent again, but we'll see.
We shall see. We shall see. All right, so that is going to do it for episode 9, Return of Abrams. Yeah. We'll see how that movie turns out. As always, guys, thank you for joining us, and fly casual. Thank you once again for joining the Lack of Focus X-Wing podcast. Check out Dice Hate Productions for all of the latest episodes, and we'll be looking forward to seeing you again next episode.